Every morning for almost 3 years, a young waitress named Emily served breakfast to an elderly man named Mr. Thompson at the small corner diner where she worked double shifts just to keep her life from falling apart. He always came in precisely at 7:30 a.m., wearing the same old gray suit and a warm but tired smile, ordering black coffee, scrambled eggs, and toast with no butter. To everyone else, he was just a frail old man, quiet and reserved, sitting alone by the window, staring out at the traffic with eyes that seemed to carry entire lifetimes of memories. But to Emily, he was special, not because of what he had, but because of how he treated her. He always asked how she was doing, remembered her name, and left notes of encouragement scribbled on napkins like, "Don't give up, brighter days are coming." Emily, who had lost her mother to illness and her father to debt collectors, found comfort in those small moments. Sometimes, she'd sneak him a free piece of pie, or refill his coffee cup without charging him, even though she knew the manager would scold her. She noticed he often struggled to walk, his hands trembling, and more than once she helped him to his car, holding his arm gently as if afraid he might break. When he didn't show up one morning, she felt something strange in her chest, worry, sadness, a sense that something was missing. The next day, and the next after that, he still didn't come. Weeks passed. Emily assumed he might have gone to a nursing home or perhaps passed away quietly, as many elderly customers did. She missed him deeply but had no way of finding out. Then one morning, just as she was serving coffee to a table of truckers, the bell above the diner door jingled, and everyone turned to look. 4 men in dark suits walked in, their presence commanding instant silence. Behind them was another man in a tailored gray suit, not Mr. Thompson, but someone who clearly meant business. Emily froze. The man approached the counter and asked, "Are you Miss Emily Carter?" She nodded nervously, wiping her hands on her apron. The man introduced himself as an attorney from Thompson and Barnes Law, and said, "I represent the estate of Mr. William Thompson." Emily's heart skipped a beat. "Estate?" she asked, her voice trembling. The lawyer nodded and gestured for one of the bodyguards to hand him a thick envelope. "Mr. Thompson passed away 3 weeks ago," he said solemnly, "but before he did, he left very specific instructions." Emily stood speechless, tears already welling in her eyes. The lawyer continued, "He told us about you, about how you treated him with kindness, respect, and humanity when most people ignored him. He said you reminded him of his late daughter." Then, the lawyer opened the envelope and pulled out a letter written in shaky handwriting. "Dear Emily," it began, "thank you for making an old man feel seen and cared for. You reminded me that love still exists in this world. I'm sorry I never told you who I really was. I'm not just an old man in a diner. I was the founder of Thompson Industries, and though my family cared only for my fortune, you cared for me as a person. So I've decided to leave something for you." Emily was trembling now, her hand over her mouth. The lawyer then placed a small velvet box on the counter, opening it to reveal a set of keys, and beside them, a folded document. "These are the keys to Mr. Thompson's lake house," the lawyer explained, "and this document confirms that the property, along with a trust fund of $2.5 million, now belongs to you." The diner fell silent. Every customer stared in disbelief as Emily broke down crying, unable to speak. The lawyer handed her the letter, which ended with, "Use this gift to build the life you deserve. Thank you for your kindness, you changed my final days." Emily clutched the letter to her chest as the lawyers and bodyguards quietly left, leaving behind an envelope that held more than just wealth. It held proof that small acts of kindness, even the simplest cup of coffee and a smile, could echo beyond time, turning ordinary mornings into extraordinary miracles. In the days that followed, Emily's world transformed in ways she could have never imagined, and yet, nothing felt real. The news of her sudden inheritance spread through the small town faster than wildfire. Customers who once ignored her suddenly filled the diner, whispering her name like it was part of some fairy tale. People she hadn't spoken to in years, old classmates, former co-workers, even her estranged father, started showing up, pretending to care, offering congratulations wrapped in thinly disguised envy. At first, Emily didn't know how to react. She kept coming to work every morning, wearing the same uniform, wiping down tables, pouring coffee for the same customers as if nothing had changed, because deep down she couldn't bring herself to accept that it was all real. She would stare at the keys in her apron pocket during breaks, the cool metal pressing against her hand like a secret waiting to be believed. Eventually, curiosity won. On a quiet Sunday morning, she took the old bus route out to the lake that bordered the edge of town, clutching Mr. Thompson's letter the entire way. When she finally stepped off and saw the house, a sprawling two-story cabin overlooking calm blue water, she broke down again, sobbing into her hands. The house was perfect, cedar wood siding, tall glass windows that caught the morning sun, and a small dock that stretched into the misty lake. Inside, it smelled faintly of pine and memories. Every room was neatly arranged, almost as if he had known she'd come. On the mantel above the fireplace sat a framed photograph, Mr. Thompson, younger, smiling with a little girl who looked strikingly like Emily herself. She froze, her heart racing. On the back of the photo, written in faded ink, were the words, "My daughter, Lily, gone too soon." It hit her like a wave, the way he had always looked at her, the gentle tone in his voice when he called her kiddo, the way his eyes softened when she smiled. Maybe he hadn't just seen kindness in her, maybe he had seen a reflection of the daughter he'd lost. As she wandered through the house, she found more clues, journals, notes, old letters, business awards gathering dust in the study. One journal entry read, "The world forgot me when I grew old. But that girl at the diner reminded me I was still human." By the time she finished reading, Emily was crying again, but this time it wasn't just grief, it was gratitude, deep and humbling. She spent hours sitting on the dock, watching the sunlight dance across the water, and made a silent promise that she would honor him, not through wealth, but through purpose. Over the next few weeks, she left the diner job and used part of the inheritance to renovate the place, reopening it as Lily's Diner, named after his daughter, with a plaque near the entrance that read, "Dedicated to those who show kindness without expecting reward." She hired single mothers, struggling students, and elderly locals who needed a second chance. Reporters came from across the state to tell her story, but she refused interviews that sensationalized her fortune, saying only, "It wasn't money that changed my life. It was kindness." Yet behind the new beginnings, another mystery started to unfold. One evening, while organizing old boxes from the attic, she found a sealed envelope addressed to her in Mr. Thompson's handwriting. Inside was a note and a small gold key. The note read, "Emily, if you're reading this, it means you found the house. But there's something more, something I couldn't bring myself to share while alive. In the study, behind the third bookshelf, there's a safe. Use this key." Heart pounding, she rushed downstairs, moved the heavy shelf, and found a hidden metal safe embedded in the wall. Her fingers trembled as she unlocked it. Inside were stacks of old documents, photos, and an envelope labeled Project Haven. There were blueprints, legal files, and letters from charities. It seemed Mr. Thompson had been quietly funding orphanages, schools, and shelters across the country, but all anonymously. And at the top of the stack was a final note that read, "Continue what I started." Emily sat there for hours, realizing this wasn't just an inheritance, it was a calling. In that moment, she made her decision. She would dedicate the rest of her life to carrying on his work, helping others just as he had helped her. Years later, the one small diner grew into a foundation that provided food, housing, and education to thousands, all under the name, the Thompson Haven Initiative. And every morning, before the doors opened, Emily would pour a single cup of black coffee, place it by the window seat where Mr. Thompson once sat, and whisper softly, "Thank you for breakfast, Mr. Thompson." As the years rolled on, Emily's quiet act of gratitude blossomed into something far greater than she could have ever imagined. What began as a simple diner born from loss and kindness had transformed into a nationwide movement that changed thousands of lives, and yet, despite the cameras, interviews, and endless articles calling her the waitress who inherited a fortune and built hope, Emily remained the same humble woman who once wiped counters and refilled coffee cups for a few dollars an hour. But with success came storms. People she never knew claimed to be relatives of Mr. Thompson, filing lawsuits and demanding their share. Reporters dug into her past, twisting her story for headlines, and greedy investors disguised as philanthropists tried to lure her